A great deal of effort has been put into studying ancient sites around the world, all in an attempt to understand the knowledge and history that has been lost. But, when we hear the truth, will we be willing to accept it? Will we be able to recognize it as the truth? We struggle to find theories that make sense of the data, because we are unwilling to believe that legends and myths could be even partially true. However, more often than not, the legends and myths are the only things that fit all the pieces together. The perfect example of this is the mysterious structure known as Por-Bajin, located in a remote area of southern Siberia in Russia. As unbelievable as the stories surrounding the structure may seem, the science from years of research actually support the legend. Welcome back to 30th, let's get started. It has been known by locals for many hundreds of years. However, it was rediscovered by the world at large when it was first explored by Russian archaeologist Dmitry Clements in 1891. The first full-fledged excavation happened between 1957 to 1963. The largest excavation was performed recently in 2007. It is stated that the latest excavation was prompted by encroaching land loss from the rising waters. All efforts would be made to learn as much as possible, before the structure was lost. And so, this expedition became one of the largest collaborative archaeological efforts ever, relative to the size of the site that was under observation. These organizations worked together on a multitude of various projects. There were over 1,000 people, composed of archaeologists, architects, and specialists from many fields including geology and physics. Over 500 student volunteers from universities in Great Britain, Switzerland, and Bulgaria joined the research. It was an extended effort, taking place over the course of 16 months, from May 2007 through September 2008. The research garnered such high interest, that the President of Russia Vladimir Putin, and the Prince of Monaco Albert Grimaldi, both visited the site in person. Consider this. It was discovered early in the study that the lake water raises and drops over short periods of time. Which means, the structure was never really at risk of being demolished by the lake. This realization was made simply from comparative analysis of satellite images and topographic maps from the last 30 years. With that in mind, including the presence of some of the most powerful people in the world, is it just by chance that the year of the study is the same year as the first high-resolution photos? Is it possible the 2007 expedition was actually spurred on by the fact that this structure was about to enter the public eye? The legend of Por-Bajin is that this was not at all a place to live in. Instead, this structure had a function. It was capable of transporting someone to another place. The source of this legend is found northwest of Lake tere-khol, in a town called Shambalik, also known as Shambhala. They share the name Shambhala with a legend and prophecy that also involves portals that can transport great distances. A number of places around the world share this name, and also have stories of nearby portals. Though circumstantial, this is the first bit of evidence that there may be some truth to the legend. Looking at the structure, one is immediately hit with the enormity of constructing this on an island. It has an obvious defensive advantage, but is equally difficult to build. It's important to understand that the bridge was built for the 2007 study. When we rediscovered the structure in 1891, there was no bridge of any kind. That's where the second part of the legend comes in. When Por-Bazhyn was built, it was on land and easily accessible. Once it was finished, the water artificially and purposefully rose up around it, cutting it off from land. Though this explanation makes the construction of the structure far easier, it raises many more questions. Was it the same person or people who built the structure that also created the lake? Is it possible that the lake water is a necessity of the structure's function? Or, perhaps a result of it? If this structure was actually a portal, is it possible the lake was raised to prevent anyone else from using it? Dendrochronology and radiocarbon dating were used to date timbers from the walls. They were found to be from roughly 770 AD. Due to the lack of evidence of prolonged human activity, their guess is that Por-Bazhyn was only used for roughly 50 years. If the date and that theory are true, then this structure has been abandoned for nearly 1,200 years. After searching the entire area, no tools, furniture, food storage, nor human remains were found. The conclusion from this massive scientific endeavor aligns with the legend that this was not a structure anyone lived in. These ancient tiles with handprints were found in Por-Bajin. In Buddhism, there are many instances where impressions of hand and footprints are found in sacred sites. Sometimes, those impressions are caused by spiritual leaders or their disciples. We are told the majority of these impressions were carved out with tools, however, many of them have a startlingly lifelike quality. The Buddhist scriptures say that Buddha himself left his footprint or handprint in the stone, as he flew from place to place. The sole reason was, to prove to the people who would come after him, that he was there. More than 3,000 Buddha footprints have been found around the world. Handprints are not only found as impressions in stone, they have also been found to be painted or stenciled on as well. This is the Cave of Beasts, discovered in 2002 and studied in 2010. Consider that some of the handprints on the wall have been proven to not be human, and have been theorized to be the hands of small reptiles. Some handprints were put in very strange places. In caves in the Maros, they are on the ceiling. This is the only area of the cave yet to be carbon dated, as they are quite difficult to reach. Which only leaves you wondering how they were able to do it in the past. Perhaps the answer lies in the size of the hands, in that they are much larger than the average human hand. What is the message they are trying to portray? If you look closely, you will notice something peculiar. They are either all right hands, or all left hands. What is the symbolism? The most startling thing, as you can see here, is that this is a global phenomenon. According to the mainstream history, these cultures were not in contact with each other until thousands of years after these hand paintings were made. Is it possible they all made the decision to illustrate only one hand, without being in contact with each other? Handprints are not the only commonality between Por-Bazhyn and indigenous sites in North America. Their stories also involved portals that can transport great distances. These portals were made and used strictly by the gods. Now look again at the hands found at Por-Bazhyn. They, like the many others around the world, are of the right hand only. Is it not possible that these are more than just decorative, in that they share some sort of symbolic meaning with the rest of the hands we have just seen? This is another supporting argument, that there is some truth in Por-Bazhyn being a portal, capable of sending someone a great distance. Otherwise, how would it be possible, other than the legend being at least somewhat true? How can we explain the same stories, and the same drawings, occurring all over the world? The legend fits the data, even better than the other theories that have been invented so far. This structure is theoretically credited to Bogu Kagan, the third Kagan of the Uyghurs. The working theory is that this was a palace, which he occupied occasionally as a summer residence. At some point, Bogu chose to turn it into a Manichaean monastery. Parts of the structure show signs of repair, and even reconstruction. The newer repairs do not match the original build, in technique, quality, or material. Sometime after that, Bogu Kagan was murdered, along with roughly 3,500 people loyal to him, made up of family members, friends, and soldiers. Subsequently after that, the structure was abandoned completely. Geomorphological tests showed signs of at least 2 major earthquakes. The first happening near the same time frame as the supposed date of construction, and the second happening roughly 50 years later. Once abandoned, the structure deteriorated from neglect. Then, the second of those two major earthquakes struck, causing further damage. With little to no explanation, the theory is that this second earthquake caused the structure to catch fire. Let me say that again. An earthquake caused a fire to an empty, abandoned, dilapidated structure. How in the world is that possible? Common sense would say that it is not. Nevertheless, this is the professional working theory of the interpretation of the data. Simply because they are unwilling to accept that there may be truth in the myth. The strongest scientific evidence that the legend is at least somewhat true is yet to come.